Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, fantastic. This is Battlefield 1. In today's weapon review, we're going to be taking a closer look at the RSC SMG, introduced of course for the Assault class in the Apocalypse DLC. As per usual, we're going to be looking at the unlock requirements of this weapon, the performance that it brings to the table, how it compares to the different variants available of itself, as well as other weapons of course available within the Assault category of weaponry, and last but certainly not least of course, how to get the most out of this weapon when using it on the battlefield. Starting off then immediately, as we always do, with the unlock requirements. Quite simple here. For the factory variant, you're simply going to have to get 50 kills with the Assault class. If you wish to unlock the optical variant of this weapon, you're going to have to get 50 kills with the RSC SMG Factory variant, the one you just unlocked, as well as within one round, perform 300 vehicle damage using explosives. This one can be a little bit more tricky than, for example, simply getting 300 healing points as for previous weapon assignments. However, it is definitely doable if you get yourself in a good vehicular focus conquest or operations map. You'll find that there's plenty of tank drivers to shoot your AT rocket guns at, and if you can get close enough, of course, dynamite or grenades will do the trick as well. Moving on, however, to these stats, and as baseline, of course, we're going to be using the factory variant of the RSC SMG. It comes in with a whopping maximum damage of 38, comparable to many SLRs, and a minimum damage of 21.5, giving it, of course, a 3-shot kill in close quarters, that's to say, within 12 meters. Between 13 meters and 30 meters, you're going to be looking at a 4-shot body shot kill, and of course, from 31 meters onwards, you're going to be facing a 5-shot kill. This comes paired with, for SMGs, a low fire rate to obviously compensate the extremely high damage, at 449 rounds per minute, as well as a extremely limited magazine with only 9 bullets available, strictly 8 plus 1 in the chamber, and a relatively poor, but in the grand schemes of SMGs, actually pretty good muzzle velocity of 570 meters per second. Accompanying the extremely small magazine is an extremely long reload with a 3.7 second short reload, that's with 1 or more bullets left, and a 3.9 second long reload. Not a big difference between those two reload times, both of them simply atrocious, especially for a close quarter weapon. Furthermore, then we've got recoil, and not too little of it either, with a vertical of 0.75, horizontal, that's to the left and right, of 0.4, as well as a relatively reasonable, actually, first shot recoil multiplier at 1.667. When it comes to the accuracy of this weapon, well, base accuracy values are the typical of an SMG to be expected, with a base ADS of 0.3, that's while standing still, not moving and aiming down sight, a moving ADS of 0.5, and hipfire at 1.5. The spread increase per shot is also pretty much what you would expect from every single SMG in the game at 0.045. However, better than usual are the first shot spread multipliers, both for hipfire and ADS at 4, meaning that this gun's spread curve is slightly less severe than, say, something like the SMG 0818 or your average Automatico. Moving on then to comparing the two different variants. There is of course an optical variant of the RSC SMG, and it comes with some key stat differences, of course, as well, however, a different optic. So if you're somebody who prefers the optical variants of SMGs, for example a Hellriegel defensive user, well then you'll find that the optical variant of the RSC is likely your jam. If not, you're likely going to want to stick to the iron sights variants, at least from a sight perspective. There is, however, some interesting stat differences to talk about. The first, of course, is no surprise. Difference in recoil decrease. The RSC SMG Factory has double the amount of recoil decrease than the optical. That's obviously given between an optical and a factory comparison. What isn't necessarily given is that the factory has the better first shot recoil multiplier. Thus, the optical variant with a first shot recoil multiplier of 2 has a higher kick initially than the factory variant does, making, of course, placing your shots accurately, especially for those medium range targets, a little bit more difficult. In the spread department is obviously where we're going to see the majority of the differences between these weapons, with a better base ADS, that's aiming down sight while not moving, of 0.225 for the optical variant versus the 0.3 of the factory, as well as a better moving ADS, whereas the factory only has 0.5. You're looking at a relatively nice 0.375 for the optical variant. Clearly, the optical is the more accurate of the two, especially when you take into account that the first shot spread multiplier while aiming down sight is only 3 on the optical versus 4 on the factory variant. Lastly then, of course, we've got spread decrease, and typical for there, the factory with a value of 4.05 is clearly the better choice in that department of stats versus the optical variant. Choosing between these two is pretty difficult, and that's because they both have essentially benefits and negatives or disadvantages to how you really end up having to play this weapon to use it successfully. The higher accuracy and the lower first shot spread multiplier are clearly the advantages of the optical. However, recoil decrease and spread decrease, as well as a lower first shot recoil multiplier, are equally relevant to using this weapon successfully. So I would recommend either make your choice dependent on sight, so iron sights versus optical sights, or simply try both of them out and find out for yourself which of the two you prefer. I'm currently leaning slightly towards the factory variant, but that is only really an initial impression, and a few more 100 kills will likely either confirm or change that belief. But let's talk about how this weapon compares to the competition and how it's used effectively. Well, when it comes to raw DPS output in close quarters, things look quite good. The weapon has got pretty much the identical time to kill to your favorite version of any of the automaticos. That's clearly strong DPS. The problems really start where you start to leave the 12-meter range when it comes to damage output, because of course, as a initially 3-shot weapon going to a 4-shot kill and eventually a 5-shot kill, the increase to your time to kill is, well, much higher than it would be, for example, with something like the Automatic, which goes from a 5 to a 6-shot kill, a relatively small difference compared, of course, to a 3 to a 4-shot kill. But that's not really the main problem, in my opinion. One of the main problems with this weapon is obvious. It's the magazine size as well as the reload. Now, I'm not somebody who usually has problems managing magazine sizes. I'm a very big fan of many of the skill cannons, the RSC, the auto-loading, the Selbstladen 1906, even the Maschinenpistole back in the day when it was still actually a good weapon to choose. All of these weapons require good mag management, and I've had no difficulty using them. But the combination of essentially a close quarter exclusive weapon and the mag management requirements is just not realistic, in my opinion. The least predictable combat frequently is close quarter, and the combat you're most likely having to face 2 targets without, for example, being able to duck behind cover or change your position or try to avoid the engagement is close quarters. If you turn a corner and there's 2 people in front of you, you're either killing them or they're killing you. You've not really got a big choice there. And if you've got an accuracy requirement, that is how accurate you have to be to actually down 2 targets, of 66%, that is, well, it's pretty bad, let's put it that way. Now, of course, this weapon, unlike some of the other skill cannons, has the capability of taking out 2 targets. The difficulty here is that, well, at the ranges that those skill cannons operate, they don't have to take out 2 targets, versus the RSC really does. And that's not really your end of troubles, because actually getting a 3-shot kill or a 4-shot kill, which frequently is the case because engagements aren't necessarily under 12 meters despite being in close quarters, isn't a guarantee. You have to be damn well accurate, and the amount of recoil that's in your way usually means that this very much is a 1 kill per magazine wonder. And that's a big problem when you're looking at a 3.7 second reload time, and that's in the good case, 3.9 seconds if you burn through all your bullets, and you're frequently facing multiple targets. So it's really the environment which the RSC has to perform in that presents to me the largest challenges. I don't understand necessarily why this weapon was given the recoil it was given either. It's got decent damage output, but there are plenty of weapons in the assault class of SMGs that can keep up with its DPS. There's the Automatico, there is of course the SMG 0818, which kills faster than it. There is also the Maschinenpistole, which easily beats this weapon in a one-on-one when it comes to DPS. So it's not the fastest killing SMG, so there's little reason in my opinion for giving it the amount of recoil that it does. I think the best weapon really to compare it to, however, is the Automatico. Same DPS within 12 meters, better DPS outside of 12 meters. Well, the Automatico across the board, independent of variant, comes in with lower recoil. If you compare the factory variant to the factory variant, you've got the same horizontal recoil, but you've got better vertical recoil. And yes, vertical recoil is controllable, but at 0.75, things start to get difficult for even seasoned Battlefield players, in my opinion. And if you're looking for a flexible variant of the Automatico, it's clearly always going to be the Storm, which comes in with just, well, basically half the vertical recoil and significantly better horizontal recoil. Yes, the first shot recoil multipliers and first shot spread multipliers on the Automatico are worse or equal depending on which variant and which situation, but really we're talking about an SMG here, which is not meant for medium long range. Thus, spread, well, it's only of limited importance. It's really the horizontal recoil that I find clearly limits the performance of my SMG, specifically the RSC SMG, when it comes to those close medium range engagements. Now, that's not to say that you cannot use this weapon effectively. It's not a useless weapon by any stretch of the imagination. This is not another SMG 0818. I'm talking, of course, about the SMG 0818's performance when it was first introduced, by no stretch of the imagination. You can use this weapon successfully, but it is very much reliant on you making sure that you basically usually only go up against 1 target at a time, have time to reload, which is going to take you quite a while, and stick to extreme close quarters only, praying that your opponent doesn't come around the corner with your shotgun. That's simply too many limiting factors, in my opinion, for too little of a reward. Now, using this weapon effectively also means, by the way, good trigger discipline and bursting as well as tap firing. As soon as you're outside of 15 meters, you do not, under any circumstance, want to go full auto with this weapon. You won't be hitting your shots. And you'll see in many clips in today's video, if you pay close attention, I'm very rarely basically holding down mouse button 1, holding down the trigger. I'm trying to burst this weapon as frequently as possible to make use, especially in the case of the factory variant, of its good spread decrease and its good recoil decrease. Trying to get the most accuracy out of this weapon as I possibly can. Of course, this comes, however, at the cost of raw time to kill. Now, I'm a little bit torn on this weapon. I see a lot of potential. I see this weapon as being extremely fun to use when it works out, but really just a little bit underpowered. And if I were DICE, I would be significantly reducing its vertical and horizontal, more importantly, recoil to basically make it a little bit more competitive at those medium ranges versus basically all of the SMGs in the game. That's at least my opinion, my experience, and I'd love to hear yours, both on this video and of course the RSC SMG. So leave that as well as of course your usual video suggestions down below in the comments or hit me up with them on Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 video.